Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time. Welcome to podcast 205. Now, we're on our festive break for a couple of weeks. And what we do every year on the Kindness Project is just do a little summary intro on some of the best bits of 2021. Now, what we're going to do this week is share a few of our interviews. The interview with Will Rainey from Blue Tree Savings, Usha and Laura Formentini, if I get that right. And we're going to have some intro chat. We're going to have some intro chat about learning new words, intro chat about, I think it's Charlotte's funky hair, and learning and have some chat about Jezza the dog, who is still one of your favourite dogs.
Saw him today. It was great.
Tell us about this new word you've learned.
Prosopagnosia.
What's it mean?
It's basically this thing where people can't recognise faces.
I don't know what you mean, Alan.
This again.
Oh, go on, prosopagnosia. Tell us about it.
Just one time, I'd like to say something and not be made a joke out of.
Go on, tell me then. Tell me. Let's have a serious conversation about prosopagnosia.
No, that was it. I'm done.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, no. Tell me about it because their audience might want to know what it is.
It's face blindness. People can't recognise people by their faces because, I don't know, something in their brain doesn't work properly. Sorry, my throat just got really dry.
And what causes it? Do they know?
I don't know.
And why are you interested in it?
I heard it and then I went on a Google rabbit hole.
Well, that's the problem with the new word, isn't it? It's like, oh, that looks interesting. Yeah. And I think it can be caused sometimes. I remember seeing a documentary on it a few years ago. It can be caused by brain injury, can't it? Like brain injury can create, amazing artists who lose their short-term memory, but it ignites some other part of the brain that gives them amazing creative skills.
Well, wasn't there that guy, Clive Waring, I think was his name, and he couldn't remember anything short-term, and he couldn't access his episodic long-term memory, so the memory of his events, but he could still remember how to play the piano perfectly.
Right.
And he still knew his wife. He didn't know her. He just knew that every time she came into the room, she was important to him.
Right.
But he couldn't actually remember who she was. He just knew.
I wonder if the feelings of love are stored in a different part of their head than the feelings of memory.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, there's memory that doesn't get lost. So like I was saying, he still remember how to play the piano because that's procedural memory and not episodic memory.
Yeah.
But there's also like stuff like semantic memory.
If you and again, this is a recommendation for listeners who, if you haven't read it, there's an amazing book I read a few years ago. I think I've got it on Kindle still, so you can borrow it if you wanted to. It's called "The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat." And it's by a psychologist called Oliver Sacks, who used to specialise in severe cognitive disorders. So not like the normal cognitive disorders that you and I might go through, but people who think their wife's an ant. Stuff like that. So certainly, if you like that sort of thing, Oliver Sacks, The Man Who Thought or Mistook His Wife for a Hat, is certainly worth a read. Are you allowed dyed hair at college?
Yeah.
No big deal.
No.
Is there loads of people with dyed hair?
Yeah.
What's the funkiest dyed hair colour you've seen?
I once saw a girl and she had long hair. And once.
Wow! Oh, well done. That's shocking.
And
did you see a boy with short hair as well?
Ha 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 ha! Very funny. And it was split down the middle, 50-50, and one side was completely black and the other side was completely this bright pink colour.
Oh, you know what? I thought you were going to say Cruella de Vil's style. One side was completely black and one side, like Sophie's hat. One side was completely black, one side was completely white.
Well, the colour did start coming out of it, but it didn't go white. It went like bleached yellow, which isn't a very nice colour.
No. Nice.
Nice.
So it's about your friends.
Jezza, the dog.
Jezza the dog.
Yeah.
Right, so you can't just say a name of a dog and that explains the
That's my
entire
new
story.
friends.
Tell us the story behind Jezza the dog.
Basically, we all swarm around Jezza the dog, and now we've got like a group chat.
Right, so again, you've mentioned this dog like he's just wandering around the streets and a bunch of teenagers are just following. Do you want to explain the context of Jezza the dog?
My college has a dog
Right.
that they break out on Mondays.
Where do they keep him the rest of the
I
week?
think he's one of the reception staff's pets.
Right. So the college brings out a dog on Mondays, and then everybody goes, he's cute.
Yeah, and then we swarm around him, and now we have a group chat.
And now you've got Jezza the dog's got his fan club. Do you reckon Russell should have his own fan club?
What would you call
The
it?
Russell Dames fan club. What do you reckon, Russ?
We had the Satsuma fan club once.
We did have a Satsuma fan club.
Yeah.
We've spoken about on the podcast before.
Yeah.
I reckon the Russell Dames fan club could have at least
It's got many cult possibilities.
10 members. What cult possibilities?
Every group or
I'd
organisation.
like to see a bit of Russell Dames fan fiction. That's what I'd like to see. What do you reckon?
No.
No, we're not having that.
No.
How about a bit of Charlotte Dames fan fiction?
No.
Okay, we're not doing that. All right, end of. So we've got some kindness news this week. So
We
you
do,
want to
yes.
do you want to do the little jingle?
Oh, don't delete it. Kindness news.
Realtor, which I think is an estate agent in the
I think it's an
UK,
estate
transforms abandoned properties into tiny home villages that give permanent housing to the chronic homeless.
A realtor in Missouri is determined to make her hometown a city where no one sleeps outside. For 9 years, Linda Brown and her husband David organised a nightly drop-in shelter where homeless people in Springfield could eat, shower and do laundry, use a computer and socialise during bingo games and karaoke, but they wanted to do more. So they transformed an abandoned mobile home property into a village of tiny homes that provides permanent housing to the chronically disabled homeless. They raised $4.7 million and opened Eden Village in 2018, erecting 31 tiny homes that are now occupied by people like Jonathan Fisher. He was battling substance abuse and had lived on the streets for 2 years when he met Linda Brown, who changed his life. In the worst moments of my life, Linda gave me guidance, care, and made me feel like I was still worth something, Fisher said. He says that Brown took the time to learn about how he became homeless and then encouraged him as he rebuilt his life. She even offered him a job.
Now sober, Fisher works full-time for Brown doing construction and maintenance on 31 homes and helping others experiencing struggles similar to what he went through. The driving philosophy behind Eden Village is the same that fuels the housing first movement. The root causes of a person's homelessness cannot be thoroughly addressed until his or her immediate housing needs are met. It's interesting with homeless because we've got a sort of homeless issue in the UK, but there are countries who subscribe and have had success from that housing first principle. Give somebody a bit of dignity and it doesn't work for everybody because each person's got their own reasons for being on the streets, but offering somebody a roof over their head and something they can call home then inspires dignity and the ability for people to start to rebuild their life. What do we think?
Yeah,
I definitely agree.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, well, that's it for Kindness News this week. So talk to me about some of the habits that that kids could develop while Charlotte falls over, that kids should develop to be better with money.
Yeah. So the way I talk to when I first started talking to my kids when they were young, because we were putting some money into investments, but I didn't really want to talk to them at that age about investments and showing them these arbitrary numbers. So what I started with is to say that money is like seeds, and so every time that we gave them some savings, we're planting them, and they're growing into trees or blue trees, and hence the name of my company. So now when we started giving them pocket money, we said, right, here's your seeds. What do you want to do? You can give them away, which is spend, or what we'd rather you did with some of them is plant them. So every time they get some pocket money, we tell them to plant at least a couple of their seeds and grow them into blue trees. So that's kind of really trying to help them build wealth, and it's kind of the objective
And that's a
of
good
life.
analogy to compare it to that the time it takes to grow that tree,
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. And also it does compound interest as well, because trees will produce more seeds, which then you can plant and grow more. So their objective is to try and grow this financial forest that's going to look after them.
Yeah, really.
So that's one habit, is every time. The other one is we say plant some flowers, which is slightly different, which is where they save up for a goal. So saving up for a toy or a magazine or a book or a game. So flowers don't take as long as trees to grow, but they don't last very long once you have them. So it's trying to get them every time they get some pocket money to sort of save up a little bit. And this is the delayed gratification. So yeah, the habits are plant some flowers and plant some blue trees every time that they get some money. So they can still spend lots of their seeds, but just have a few. And those two habits of planting some flowers, saving up for something, and planting some blue trees to kind of grow their wealth, I think are just going to be so powerful. So when they become adults, that's just what they do. So even now the amount they've got now is small. If they keep doing that, and as they get more and more money, and they keep doing the same, then the chances of them going into debt and etc. is going to be much
they're
lower.
just better managing their money. I mean, Charlotte's got a different philosophy. She just sort of earns money and keeps it, doesn't you? And you just.
I don't have anything to spend it on, so I don't need anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll probably splurge on Christmas presents this month, but otherwise.
Yeah.
There's
You
no
just
point.
hoard like that.
Like a dragon and a giant mountain of gold, just like mine.
Yeah, maybe we should start a furniture education program called Dragon, Charlotte the Dragon. I don't know. So what I did love is the way that you use like stuff that kids are into. Like your Lego bricks blog was amazing, by the way. I really enjoyed that. And I know there was a bit for the adults as well. And funny enough, The Millionaire Next Door is one of my favourite all-time books. I think that perception of real wealth compared to that fake perception of Instagram wealth, or whatever you want to see it, is interesting. So tell me a little bit about sort of how you think we change that perception that material wealth is everything and actually financial security is more important. What do you think we need to do about that?
Yeah, well, the first bit is just to kind of raise that there's this alternative, because everyone's kind of growing up in this world where they're only going to see what's on TV, what's on social media, see what their friends have got. Yeah. And therefore, that kind of materialistic view of the world is kind of just natural and in your face.
It's also that definition of success, isn't it? That's the sort of perception that's out there at the minute.
Yeah, so I wrote a blog called Rich Kids versus Wealthy Kids. And in the start of that, I kind of say when I was younger, I used to watch a program called MTV Cribs, which was going around like famous superstars' houses, and they had all the big mansions and rooms and swimming pools and cars. And that's what I wanted. And I remember drawing the mansion I was going to live in and thinking about the supercars I was going to drive. But then as I got older, I found out all those superstars are bankrupt. Yeah. I actually rented the big houses just for the TV show. They didn't actually own it. Yeah. And I was like, it just kind of shocked me. And it kind of then just put a shiny light on actually most people who are showing off don't actually have much kind of substance behind what they're showing.
Is a good word.
And it's that. So what I've done with my daughters is I told them a story about rich raccoon versus wealthy wallaby. And so rich raccoon's the kind of stereotype of the Instagram, big house, fancy cars, showing off, earns lots of money. But then he goes for lunch with his wealthy wallaby friend who doesn't have a high-powered job, hasn't stayed in the same house for many, many years. And they go for a lunch, and rich raccoon's showing off and taking them to the fanciest restaurant and saying, I'll pay. But then wealthy wallaby says, I'm just letting you know that I'm going on a very long holiday with my family because I want to spend loads more time. And rich raccoon's like, how can you do that? And I can't. I earn so much more than you. I've got so much more stuff than you. How can you? And it's all wealthy wallaby has just been slowly building up, saving a little bit every time, and it just gives this. Now my kids are like, oh yeah, I definitely want to be like wealthy wallaby and have that kind of freedom to be able to do stuff, whereas rich raccoon's kind of captured in his money world.
And that's the challenge, isn't it? It's just, I think when you do get a bit older, and certainly when you have a family, that value of time is the perception changes over time, doesn't it? You go, you know what? It's time using money to buy you the time that you want to do with what you want, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Usha and Lena, thanks for joining us on the Kindness Project.
Did you almost forget what the podcast was called?
You know what the problem is? Life is like compartmentalized into a bunch of different places. I sometimes during the day forget what job I'm doing. Do you?
Yeah. I don't have that much trouble. I only do four different lessons.
So yes, we are on the Kindness Project. We are talking about kindness. Otherwise, it would be strange that you're here because you this is the only project we do together. But we are talking about kindness. We are. This is a first for the Kindness Project. So we've interviewed people all around the world. We've never interviewed a fellow parent-daughter before. So welcome. No, you know what? We have the guys who run kindness.org. We had one was in LA and one was in New York, wasn't they? So we did that
I
one.
do remember that.
Okay, cool. So our audience can understand a little bit about you guys. Tell us who you are.
Yes, I'm Usha.
He thinks we're the same person.
Now this is hold on. Let's just go. We might have got hesitated on the name of our podcast, but we didn't get our names wrong. That's pretty much locked in.
I do. Sometimes it is difficult to remember my own name.
Okay, Usha and Lena, either one.
Yeah, no, do you know what? I just wanted you to feel better,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It was all about that, yeah. I don't have senior moments at all. So anyway, so no, I'm Usha. So I'm the founder of Healing Feeling. It transforms lives through training and therapy. And really, I set this up to empower parents to raise happy children. And it's all done through preventative mental health techniques. This is my daughter Lena.
Hi guys, yes, I'm Lena. So in my day job, I train salespeople, but I also support mum in the business. I basically joined her because I believe in the message, the mental health message, and it just came to a point where it would be good to work together because obviously, as you know, it's more fun to do things together rather than by yourself.
With your kids.
Yeah.
And help me understand a little bit about how prominent that message has become, particularly in 2020.
Oh, hugely. I mean, 2020, since lockdown began, we've had so many parents call us because their children have showed like Jekyll and Hyde kind of characters. 1 minute they're fine, next minute they're really aggressive or angry. Obviously, there's been quite a few deaths in the year. I mean, personally, we've
had a lot in the family.
We've had lots and we've experienced them, but also so many other people have as well. And I've seen so many people ask, how do I, as a parent, how do I tell my 5-year-old, how do I tell my 6-year-old that this person's died? And so, that's been a big thing. And
it's
also
a difficult conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anxiety has been very, very prominent. Depression, people have lost businesses, they've lost their livelihoods, and we're so confused, aren't we, with whether we're tier 1 or tier 2 or how long this is going to last. So the uncertainty of it all. So this year, definitely mental health has been high on the agenda for a lot of people.
It's interesting because you talk about that emotional roller coaster. I know that you've been through it this year, haven't you? But I don't think it's only the kid, like to younger people. I think it's adults as well. Do you know what I mean? Certainly, as a family and business, we've been affected a lot less than most people. But you still have those days where it can be tough.
Yeah. I mean, as a business, I'm a small business. I'm a one-person well, 2 people. But in terms of the mental health, I do that bit. But we have seen a dip. When we had the first lockdown, we had a real dip because people didn't want to. We couldn't meet. And although I offered the online, a lot of people didn't want to do that because it loses that contact, the connection, doesn't it? However, a positive for me was that I could, I had to do online training. So I got some specific online training to do psychotherapy online because I didn't have that. And so now I can actually connect with people online as well. So, but it has become busy since the second lockdown. Yeah.
You've got a question?
Oh, yeah, looking at the list of questions now. So what inspired you to start Healing Feeling? I got that the right way around, or am I?
Yeah, it is Healing Feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is healing.
I had that written down in all the questions.
Not,
so if it's
not
wrong,
feeling healing, that'd be a different kind of business.
Well, it's interesting.
That's cringe for your dad to say. Isn't it?
I know. What kind of a show is this?
I know. We're 3 years in, and we're still trying to work it out.
Some of the jokes we make on here just out of like tiredness.
Yeah. We haven't got that excuse today, have we?
No,
Really?
it's just kind of jokey, I think.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about the inspiration behind the Healing Feeling.
Yeah, really, what inspired me was actually when I had her. So I think there's a motherly instinct when you hold your baby for the first time. It's like you just want the world to be right for them, and literally, it was I told myself, okay, I'm going to make her world better than mine was. I had in my past, I'd suffered a lot of bullying when I was a teenager. I came to this country when I was 8 years old. I couldn't speak English. There was all of these unwritten rules, social rules. I didn't get it. So I didn't fit in, basically. And when I had her, I just thought, I'm not going to have her going through the same sort of issues that I went through. And it was when she was 5 years old that I decided, because I was home for 5 years with her, and then when she had to go to nursery, I decided to train myself as a teacher. So as a mature student, I was going out. It was really hard because obviously dropping off to childminders and dropping off to nursery. It was a lot of
and
work.
doing a degree at the same time.
Yeah, doing a degree at the same time wasn't easy. So the Healing Feeling the inspiration was to make it a better world for Lena, really.
I think that's an amazing aspiration to do, and certainly,
absolutely.
I think the motivation behind what you do changes when you become a parent, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Certainly, your perspective on life changes because you're now responsible for this not so small, not so small anymore. The other one's a little bit smaller, but not so small anymore, human being. And you've become a role model and you want to make the world a better place, right?
Exactly. And, as a teacher later on, I learned that, that all of our issues and things, all our belief systems start from when we're children. And I did have a bit of a breakdown. I had ME when I was a teacher. So ME is all like chronic fatigue. It's a stress related illness. And I was in bed literally for a year. And it was through that I learned that actually all your belief systems start from childhood and your thoughts create your reality. And I'm thinking, how did I create this? And so the second inspiration came when I just thought, I'm determined to undo this. And when I did eventually go back to school, I did start to work with the children in my care. So I started to help them to start from the inside out, get better grounding. I actually tested a lot of the materials out on Lena. So maybe you might want to say something about, the kind of work we did together.
So I know you talk a lot about the power of not only having an amazing website with bees on. Russ, are you listening? You talk about the power of storytelling quite a lot. So tell me about how you think storytelling is important in terms of doing good work.
Well,
Well, I think that storytelling stems from journaling. So, having so many emotions myself, I had to let those emotions out and, out of my head and on paper. And so I've been journaling all my life. And so it's interesting how, what I feel today, not necessarily is what I felt a few, months before or a few years before, because we're evolving. So I decided to put together, my journals, of evolution and really see what I could come up as far as telling stories. And, I decided, like I said, I never was a social media person. I always did work behind the scenes because I never really cared about, letting people know what I was doing. But, there was a point where I decided, wow, I've been doing so much work nonprofit wise that I think it will be really cool to put together all of my experiences and start telling stories. And so I started writing articles. These articles have been published, and I started writing books too. So I'm completing my third book.
Oh,
And
amazing.
yeah, and then I have a couple of agents interested. I just attended the Writer's Digest Pitch Slam in New York, the virtual thing, obviously, and so basically, I decided to tell stories about my experiences around, with not just with working with nonprofits.
And that actually, I think that's really important, because the more stories we can get out there of people doing amazing work in the world, it's one of the reasons we run the podcast. One of the reasons we run it is because I think if we can share more stories of people doing positive things, it sort of then counteracts all the negative stuff you hear, doesn't it? And I think that's quite important.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that we, especially going through certain situations like traveling to third world countries or impoverished countries, let's put it this way, because in a lot of ways I think we are more third world than they are. But anyway, I think that it's important to really show what a lot of these people have done to come out of their darkness, how they've coped. And this is what my books are about. They're about tales of transformation.
Journey
from around the world. And so one book, for instance, is on my experience with the orphanage, working at the orphanage. The other one is a book on my experience with what I created after here in Sicily. Another book is going to be on the power of sponsorship, because, for instance, I've been sponsoring 40 kids over 17 years with Plan USA. And I was thinking, well, why not talk to Plan USA and see if they want to write a book together on how sponsorship has changed the lives of the previously sponsored.
I love that idea. Yeah, because you can tell the stories of the impact of that sponsorship using the individuals who have been sponsored. So we want to go on to the next question, but Charlotte has got a college lesson in about 10 minutes, so she's going to need to leave the interview.
Okay.
Mic drop. Charlotte out.
Charlotte, it was very nice meeting you.
Do you want to do the next question before you go?
Okay, I'm going to ask the next question.
It's not about websites or bees, is it?
Oh, it should be.
Okay.
Okay, so you've already spoken about how you started doing your non-profit work with people, but could you tell us about how you got into doing non-profit work with animals?
Yeah. Again, even that is something that stems from the empathy and all of that. So it's almost like it's not just, I've never just had empathy towards people. It's like towards anything that is really living, like any living creature. So, and I found myself one year in, vacationing in Sicily, and Sicily is a place where the concentration of strays ranks probably as the highest in Europe. So you have Romania, you have Sicily. People come here for the beauty, for the food, for the beaches, the archaeology and everything, but they don't really see what is going on. And, it's almost like I see I almost I go beyond like what
Yeah.
just the
I think
circle that
I think that's important, isn't it? That
yeah.
the point you made, like sort of you could go to all of these countries and just see what the tourists see, but you need to sort of dig a bit deeper to understand what's actually going on
Yeah, yeah.
for the humans that live there and the animals.
Yeah, and I feel that in a way the world is really ruled by people, but we're also sharing this beautiful earth with billions of animals, and I
Yeah,
think
100%.
well they don't have a voice. It's almost like giving voice to the voiceless, and so I decided, I said, well, I had already sold most of my possessions, and so I said, well, how about I invest and do this, and so my idea is to really, so I opened an animal sanctuary and in Sicily, and it was a culmination of working with many different places, organizations, and I thought, well, why not open my own? And
when was that? When was that opened?
so we opened last year, and obviously COVID hit this year in February. So it's been very challenging, but we've been moving forward. Nonetheless, we've been working with a consultant we're in touch with foundations worldwide, and I've written articles. I wrote a book on this experience, and so I've been on a couple of podcasts, and so it's been challenging because I noticed that when people used to donate, previously, the previous years, this year it's been very much different. It's been more.
It's interesting because we do some charity work locally, and I speak to loads of charities through trying to tell their stories on the podcast. And the challenge you've got for a lot of charities at the minute is typically their fundraising may come from events, and there's just been no events, is there? It's just been a different environment.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. You cannot have events, so you cannot host an event of any sorts. And then we also have, so we're on 17 acres, and we have a beautiful property that we did rent out a bit to tourists this year, but that was the whole point to with all the proceeds would go
back
to sterilizing the animals, the strays. But obviously,
what animals have you got on the site?
So at the sanctuary right now, we have donkeys, we have ostrich that just laid an egg yesterday, which was ridiculously huge, and we have many birds, and we have we're having another donkey coming, and there's a possibility to have more to rescue 11 horses from the slaughterhouse, but the problem is they cannot transport the horses right now because we're stuck in our own towns. You cannot leave your town unless it's a.
So are these animals just from Sicily or from Italy more generally, or where do you rescue animals from?
So we rescue the animals locally, and obviously they're all locally rescued. And then again, the proceeds from the farmhouse, so the Airbnb and the renting and the we're also planning on having a petting farm and having a horse therapy center. All the proceeds will go to the sterilizations of the local strays.
There was podcast 205. Hope you're getting geared up for Christmas. We certainly are, aren't we?
Yeah.
And hope you have a lovely week.